It looks like the stream was deleted on Facebook. Okay.
Good morning, y'all.
Hey.
What's up? What's up? What's up, everyone? Happy Thursday. Hope everyone is doing well. Summer is going well.
Mm-hmm.
Hope everyone is staying safe during this heat wave. I know on the East Coast, some of y'all are experiencing triple digits. Wild. Absolutely wild. So hope everyone is staying hydrated, staying safe. We are super, super excited today. We got another guest. We actually have a whole slew of guests for the rest of 2026. So we're super excited. But very excited.
Not the rest of 2026. It's just July
2nd. I mean, but listen, but the rest of 2026, okay? Your girls is on and popping. But we are starting off July with Miss Monique Young. Super excited to have her on, the CEO and founder of the School Counselor Coach. So welcome, Monique.
Thank y'all for having me. I'm excited to be on today.
Perfect. How has your summer been going? Tell us a little bit more about you and what you've been doing this summer, what you've been getting into.
Yeah, it's been work pretty much. I've been teaching a mental wealth and health and wellness class with high school students. So going to campus and being in the hot room brings me back to college for sure. But yeah, it's been really cool to be able to do that. So that's been most of my summer for real.
Wow.
Busy. In the hot rooms. I know, right?
I know.
Sherann, what you been up to since last time we chatted?
Parenting.
Yeah, that's real life.
Are your kids home for the summer? Like no camp, no,
In my next life. On my next timeline, in my next life, I will be able to do that. Where we summer, we go to the vacation house and do those things. So that's why we're here, right? That's why we're on this live, building our platform, sharing our story with folks.
Yeah.
But yeah, the babysitter's on the way. They got swim lessons this morning. Right now, the babysitter's on the way, and they got swim lessons this morning. And they're going. It's like almost 100 out here today. It's hot, so they're going to a splash park. So swimming lessons, lunch, splash park, and then they'll come home tired. The way I like it.
Okay, fun.
I swear, yeah. The last couple of days we've been to the pool too. My son Christopher's 5, and it's like the water takes him out. So it's like, great, let's go to Taekwondo, let's go to the pool for an hour and a half, come home, shower, eat, and then it's like no fight, just I'm out. He's like, Mommy, I'm tired, I'm ready to get in the bed. Perfect.
All that energy. Yep.
No fights for me. So Monique, tell us more about the School Counselor Coach and like what brought you on your journey to be an entrepreneur and lead you down that path.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I'm like, it definitely was not in the plans. I was like, I'm going to be a school counselor. Maybe I'll become a director and then I'll retire, But I will say like COVID for a lot of people changed things. Around that time, a little bit before it, I was starting to get kind of like tapped on by my director and other school counselors that were in my district, and they were like needing support with just like some of the things that we were doing. So when COVID hit, and then we had to figure out how do you still provide services to students yet through a computer, people were like, hey, I saw you doing lessons online, or I saw you doing this with your team. You guys are doing like PD and we're over a computer. And so I was like, okay. And my principal was actually the one to say to me at the time, he was like, hey, he said, those people who like come and do like our summer like institute and training, he was like, they make money. And I was like, for real? He was like, they make bank. And I said, well, let me go ahead and Google, but like I said, I was already providing PD for the staff like twice a month, every month. Also just doing a lot of initiatives and like, practices within my own school, because I was like, went into a school that was the bottom performing like math and ELA, not only probably in our district, but in the state. We were like the 6th bottom performing district or something like that at the time. And so, of course, when I came in, they were like, well, we need to do a lot around math. We need to do a lot around ELA, like it's an emergency. And I'm like, y'all, we got kids throwing this. Like, somebody got to do something. So, and starting my business, I was like, more support staff need to understand like what they can do and how they can advocate and like lead a lot of these school mental health initiatives, because a lot of times it won't be at the forefront of the conversation. I was told a lot my first year, oh, we'll get to it. We'll do that later. Once we got our math scores up and this, that, and third. And I was like, we're not going to get to it if we don't pay attention now. So that's really been the journey in supporting student support staff. And like I said, really paying attention to our social emotional development in schools.
Wow. And it's so interesting because one of the things that I know people are sick of hearing, but have to keep saying because it's not reality for everybody, is pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And I know we're 5 years past. One, if you're in schools, if you were in schools during the pandemic or before the pandemic, through the pandemic and after, it is the biggest blip. If y'all are a Marvel fan, y'all know what I'm talking about. It is a blip, right? People are like, like this ain't that. This surely, what's coming next? And so I'm realizing through your origin story here. So here I'm in my superhero origin story. I'm noticing, right? Like that is a big part of why you're here now, and where a lot of your passion is coming from. And so I'm loving to hear that. And so I want to ask you a quick question. And so the thing that I noticed as a school leader and as a school leader through the pandemic, it got 0 stars, do not recommend, 0 out of 10. Okay, don't do it.
The ghetto.
Retire. Find something else to do. Okay. Don't school through a pandemic. Okay. And bonus, don't lead a school through a pandemic postpartum with a 4-month-old. I'm just saying, I came off maternity leave. Okay.
Yeah.
What? So just for the record, just in case anybody else out there, I did it. Don't do it. Don't recommend it. Okay. So, but what I'm realizing is we weren't prepared in a couple of very specific spaces. The one thing we did have was relationships with our kids. We were able to call home, get things to kids immediately upon closure. Like that wasn't an issue for us. The relationships were there. What wasn't there was adequate technology and like on-site training for teachers and staff that just weren't prepared for the need to shift to tech so quickly. And so that was showing a real gap, even though we'd had technology, Chromebooks were everywhere. We didn't have enough working ones. You know how that goes. And then we also just didn't have the training for staff. And so they were paying big bucks to all these companies that showed up on a dime to be like, oh, hop on this training. We're going to teach you how to use Nearpod. We're going to, like, all these things came out of nowhere. I'm like, where were all these tools months ago when we were asking for support for kids who were sick, were home, we're working full time. Curriculum. And mind you, I talk from a big kid lens, older student lens, but all these resources were magically there. So that's a whole nother thing that I got with the system. But my real question is, what allowed you to, what did you think was missing at that time to pivot on a dime? For me, we had the relationships which worked for us, but the systems weren't necessarily in place. So what worked for y'all, what didn't work for y'all, and what is your takeaway from that now that you know schools need to do and improve? That's a big question.
So basically you're asking, like, you know, when that pandemic hit, like what did we do that worked during the pandemic, and then things that, you know, maybe needed some improvement, or what we learned from.
What showed up all of a sudden, like, oh, we was doing this all wrong.
I'm trying to think. The first thing that kind of pops up, I think, you know, when we were told that we were going to be home, right? And it was just like, take all your stuff, take your laptops and all of that, you know, and just waiting for like those next orders. Like we really didn't know, like, okay, when are we coming back? Are we going to do hybrid? Like that was still up in the air. But at the time, like maybe 2 months before, we had just came back from a trip, and like our assistant superintendent at the time wanted us to become a trauma-informed school. And so like as a support team, we had went and we had got out our training and we were ready to come back, right? And like work with our staff. And we were just like, dang, we got sent home. And we were like, we're not going to let this pandemic stop what we're planning to do. And so I remember talking to my principal and just being like, we need to take the advantage that people are home. They have less hours that they have to be directly with students. And so we signed up to do like mediation trainings and restorative justice trainings, like together as a staff. Like they were like, at 12 o'clock, you're going to be done. You'll have your office hours later, but like from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we're going to be doing training together. And I think it helped because we already had like a staff group chat. So we were already like, you know, because we did have some staff members that struggled with the internet. So we was calling them up like, hey, I need you to click on the blue button. I need you to do this. So, you know, that was a thing. But I want to say one of the things that we didn't anticipate, and, you know, even my husband was surprised because, you know, he's like in tech. And he was like, these kids don't know how to use their computers. And I said, baby, they don't. I said, when they were on like their one-on-one devices, especially the kids who had tablets, they only knew how to use an app. Like an app basically has everything there for you as long as you press the button, right?
You don't need a type or
Yeah, but when we talking about get on the browser, they like, what is the browser? You know, like, how do I open the internet page? What are you talking about? Like, they did not know, and the parents did not know. And so, like, our teachers had to like go out to like kids' houses or, you know, just be outside and be over the phone and be like, hey, okay, so I need you to open a laptop. This is what it should look like. It was so much more like hands-on than we anticipated, just getting them on the devices and getting them logged in first for us to do any type of work. But as far as like that training piece and like the coaching, our professional development, we was like, oh, ain't nothing about to stop this show. Like I was able to really kind of lead some of the effort in us training our staff on how to do morning meetings. We started that through COVID. Like we did our PD virtually, but then like the coaching and stuff that we did afterwards, we were on Microsoft Teams. And so I would pop into the room and be like, okay, here's, you know, your 7 look fors, and it would give some pieces afterwards, but we continued that even when we came back. So yeah.
So the system. So I think that that's the important piece. I think that Sherann said is like that I noticed specifically during the COVID time, and I had just had a baby, so I didn't really have to deal with school, but I think just working with families and other kids was just a lot of systems were not in place, which gets me to, I think, systems in schools, especially when we talk about SEL, because social emotional support, behavior support, all starts with the tiered system. So I would love for you to talk more about the tiered system and what a tier 1 SEL support system looks like, what a strong tier 1 system should look like, and why we should all care about tier 1.
So I think one of the things that's really common when we start talking about like systems for social emotional support is that people feel like, okay, well, we're going to have our school-wide expectations, like how are students supposed to act and how are they supposed to behave in schools. So that's usually like consistent across the board. It makes people feel good of like, yes, we have common language and X, Y, and Z. And then one of the other things too, I feel like when people feel like, yes, I've gone the extra mile or I've gotten the golden star, is when they've decided to invest in some type of social emotional curriculum or platform. Sometimes they go, you know, hand in hand, things like Character Strong or Second Step or things like that. And they're just like, yes, we're investing in our kids' social emotional development. And, you know, like I said, people feel like they have a golden star. But the issue is, you know, that a lot of times we don't really know what to do with it once we've invested. Like, okay, now we have it, but it's like, what do we do with it now? So really what we're kind of looking for when you say like a strong, like tier 1 system or strong tier 1 support, you really want to see like a plan for it. Like every school has some type of goals or a comprehensive plan that they're working through, right? And like I said, we get so minute and very specific for our math goals and our ELA goals, especially right now in this time with, you know, the whole reading situation. But when it comes to SEL, it can be very vague. You know, oh, we want to see SEL across all classes, or we want to see tier 1 practices across the school, but then we're not very specific. And so at that beginning of the school year, having a specific goal of like, do you want to increase your self-management of your students? Do you want to increase responsible decision making? And what are the things that you're going to do to get there? Because that should be, your 30, 60, 90. What are you doing that is consistent across the school year? And how are you measuring that? So that's what I would look for if I'm like, okay, trying to measure the strength of a school's tier 1 practices, like that consistency, that plan that is going all the way throughout the school year and it's measurable.
Yeah. And then I would even say, like with the systems, one step further, it has to be intentionally built in.
Yes.
One of the things that I saw, the one school that I was working at, me and the RBT that I was working with, shout out to my girl Ashley, we would be in the school, and especially some of the kindergarten, first grade classrooms, it was just dysregulation consistently, right? And some of it, I just think coming out of COVID, like the skills weren't present, right? So you can't really fault the kids because the skills weren't present. So the one teacher we had a great rapport with that I was able to be a little more direct with, I was like, yo, forget math and reading for today. Like, we just need to spend a whole day on SEL. Like, the kids clear, and me being a little ignorant, right, with the system. I'm like, the kids ain't getting it, right? You're just regulated. I'm being called in here every 10 minutes for something. There's disruption. Like, we just need to break it all down and teach these skills as a whole, not like we're pulling everyone out because some of these kids aren't really even on our caseload. Just start over, throw it all away, start over, scrap this plan for the day, and let's actually implement the SEL curriculum that, like you said, is there and the plan that's there. And then she was like, yo, Scho, when? Like, I can't do it during specials, right? Art or music. That can't do it during recess. I can't do it during lunch. So like, you want me to, I would love to do it during math and ELA, but if I don't stick with the pacing and I'm now scrap it for the day, then I'm behind all the other teachers. And then when I'm behind all the other teachers, then I get dinged as a bad teacher because I'm behind the pacing. So like, I would love to scrap this for the day and do SEL, but I can't afford to. Like, essentially it was like, if I do it, like, my career, or I could be put on a performance improvement plan. And I'm like, yo, this is wild. So like, y'all have all these resources and a plan, but no actual time, intentional time built into the school day to actually like intentionally do it outside of like, we're going to have a movement break and yay. But like, we have 20, 30 minutes set aside every day to be able to teach these skills throughout 8th grade. Cause like, I think it's so important. I mean, there's a lot of adults that still don't manage their social emotional regulation appropriately. So I think that's the issue that I see too. It's like, like you said, we have all these things. Yay, we got the gold star, but now have we actually, as a district or as a state or as a nationwide, like really put a strong emphasis on like the importance of SEL?
Can I put my school leader hat on real quick?
Yes, because I was curious what your perspective on that is.
So so everything you said is true. And it's true because, and I don't know, Monique, in your training, but I also would adjunct in for school social work courses. And so I taught this course, literally school social work, folks who were interested in that field. And we would teach them that we were guests in the system. And so it's an add-on. And so exactly what you're speaking to, Scho, is we added this thing more heavily, more robust into schools because we know it's a thing, but we never actually made room for it. It was like layered on. And so to your point, the academics come first. We've got to move the testing scores. We have to see X, Y, and Z happen. Oh, and by the way, these kids are showing that something ain't right. Not that something's wrong, but just something's not right. And how
they don't have the skills, right? They don't got the skills yet.
Because we separated social, emotional, and behavioral skills from academic skills. And when we think about human development at this age, which all three of us are trained in, right? They actually go hand in hand. But the schools weren't designed that way. And then when we finally realized that something wasn't right, we wanted to add this thing on. So it was layered instead of blended or made a part of. And so as a school leader, I had the opportunity to make that space. My program was very flexible. I had older kids. And so we did a lot of executive functioning because we also workforce development. We had to teach those essential skills, also people call them soft skills, so kids could be ready, be prepared, and go out into the universe. You had a bad behavior, we treated it like a bad grade. You can't cuss your boss out. You can't cuss your teacher out. What is the skill that you were trying to think? How do you advocate for yourself? What's the agency you were trying to, like, how do you use your agency to be, a professional or a student? Like, what does a student look like? What does a professional look like? And how do I help you fix that skill? So that's how we utilized it. And that's how we embedded the SEL work into our program. I know it looks a little different for younger students, but yeah, so I had that flexibility as a school leader, but I also had that lens as a social worker.
Right. And I'm glad that you brought that up too, though, because I'm like thinking about what you said as like it was kind of an add-on, right? My school district that I was working in at the time, they started to invest in more social workers coming in. They already had school counselors in every building, but they were bringing in social workers. Now, a lot of the social workers that we had come in were coming from working in the public sector, doing like child advocacy and things like that. And so I remember talking to the one in my building, and she was frustrated because I think either she wasn't getting the time that she needed to like have more professional development on the topics that we needed to, or just like, some of the conversations would just automatically go back to instruction. And I told her, I was like, you got to remember, like, we are a la carte here, instruction is the main meal, but we are a la carte. So that's how people see us. But I'm like, of course, there's things that we can do on our side, but like, we have to remember that that's not in schools. It's typically not the main focus for students. Their business is to educate kids and mostly instructionally, So yeah, I just remember that as soon as you said that. And I was like, I remember having that conversation.
Yeah. So what do you... I see, I want to know about the misconceptions, because one of the things I see very often as a behavior specialist in schools is I feel like again, that separation between academics and like behavior and social emotional, right? I see teachers understanding what an academic tiered support system, right? What is the universal things that we're teaching? Yep. Okay, these are the things we're doing for everyone. All right, these kiddos may need a little extra more support. Here are the tier 2 things we're doing. Perfect. Like, okay, this group, these kiddos need even more specialized, individualized support. Now we're moving them to tier 3. It's a whole system. Everyone kind of knows it. It flows. But then it's like unable to be generalized to the behavior and the social emotional side, where it's like, we tried this on tier 1 and we did this for everyone. And like, now this kiddo needs to be evaluated for SPED. You need to come in for an FBA or, for a referral or something. And I'm like we missed 2 whole tiers. Like, you can't tell me 50% of your classroom needs like my support, individualized support, or needs like to be evaluated. So like, what is missing, or like, what is a misconception that we're missing about just tier 1 SEL and behavior support?
A misconception that we're missing. I think that people think that it's completely different. When it comes to academic, MTSS, and then like the social emotional, and I'm just like, you guys, it works pretty much the same way. Like, we're just switching the module. But, kind of speaking to what you were saying earlier about like, the teachers kind of had like a misunderstanding, or like there's almost like a blip in information of like, okay, why is this so challenging? And I remember asking like the teachers that I was working with, I was like, what is a part of your grad program? Like, do you guys learn how to do you learn how to respond to students? Like, what type of training do they give you in response to crisis or like any type of behavior things. And, they was telling me, well, I learned hands on top, everybody stop, or, those call to action things. But that was the gist of it. Maybe had one child psychology class. I mean, but if you look at any university right now and you look in like a bachelor's like teaching or education program, it's mainly going to say like, okay, math instruction, writing instruction. Like it's very like, we are teaching you how to teach the curriculum, and we gonna sprinkle in that child psychology class or whatever, and maybe another class here or there, but it's not necessarily rooted in that social emotional. So a lot of it feels uncomfortable or like foreign place to them. And so it's really hard for them to switch over. But also too, if you're not practicing it consistently and every day, or hearing the language to kind of, get your mind switched over to it, it's really hard to switch over. Because I was like, I had to learn more of the academic MTSS for me to be able to translate it and communicate that to not only my admin, but to teachers, to give them, examples. So, I mean, like I said, if it's not a common part of the way that they communicate or how they're talking about supports, then it's so hard. It's so hard, or it just feels very just, what is this? Yeah. So that's definitely something that I've noticed a lot when working or trying to communicate with educators.
How do you bridge some of that in your school buildings? So what I do know is I had the luxury of being with a smaller staff. Some people consider it smaller, but a lot of staff are like 30 plus, right, on any given school. Sometimes 100 staff, hundreds plus. So how do you bridge those relationships with counselors or student support staff? I'll just bulk everybody: student support staff, administrative staff, which is different, and also teaching staff. Everybody use their role oftentimes as the role.
Yes.
Together for this tier 1 effort, because what I also realized is tier 1 starts at the door, actually before the door. So from the greeting the kid. So so I did a lot of work and restorative work with I changed their name from security to safe and welcoming school specialist. That was like the simplest thing. And it changed everything, because the little sign on the desk was no longer security, because that just felt blah.
Yeah.
To safe and welcoming schools specialist. It's little things, tier 1, right? That's like, and because they had eyes on kids first. They saw them walk up to the building, into the door. What is their hoodie up, head down? Was their parent yelling at them outside to get out the car? Like, what was even welcoming them into the school day? Like, how could they even get started to whatever's about to come their way? And what happened before they even got to school? Was the bus? Was it raining? Did they get splashed by a car? Did they slip and fall? Did they forget their phone was dead? Whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's always they had first eyes.
Yeah.
That person is so key to tier 1. So my and I had to realize that. And I was like, everything. And I'm like, we're just figuring, before they even come to the classroom area, grab breakfast if they're going to eat something, you've seen them.
The eye in the sky. Yep.
So how do you bridge those positions together? Like, what is some of the work that you've done around tier 1 practices that has gotten your teams and your staff to realize we in this together?
Yeah. So the crazy thing is I started doing it in my role as a school counselor, but not necessarily understanding that I was doing it. I was like low key being selfish, where I was like, we need to figure out what's going on with these kids who have like all of these needs. And I feel like we're not meeting them. And so selfishly, I was like, I got to find the people who are, going to be on my guiding coalition and like really help support it or bring up the issue of social emotional supports for students. So it started off that way, but later on I became a student services coordinator. And so I was more intentional and focused on that way. But what I will say is always starting with alignment. Like I said, there's always a goal or a focus for the school year, right? On like, here's what we're doing, or here's the things that we're focusing our attention or our time on, right? And so I would always think as a school counselor, like, okay, what about my counseling program aligns with that, and where can I find spaces where I insert, social emotional, right, into that, right? And so when I found those opportunities, it might be that, like, hey, we're trying to build more of our welcoming. I think one of my first years, we were trying to make sure that the parents felt welcomed and, all of that stuff. So I was like, okay, well, can I have some students who they greet the parents and they like give them tours when they come in, that type of thing. But also learning the other support staff roles and what they can do as well. Because I'm like, I don't have to do all of this on my own. Social workers have a very similar role to school counselors. If we had later on had a behavior interventionist, hey, she can provide some supports to students too. I had to really be intentional about finding out what all does the role encompass, but also talking with the people to figure out how can we work together, but also the teachers too. The teachers are one of the hardest, I will say, to get, I guess, on board, just because they have so much on their plate, right? So it almost comes to figuring out what are the things that you're already doing that fit into what the need is for social emotional development. If you're doing a read aloud already, right? How can we be intentional about, hey, can you just make sure that all of your books align with responsibility for the month? Because we're going to have a good character of the month nominated, so that doesn't make it extra for them. It's just like, hey, if you could just stay on this theme, that'll help us out. So I try to find the wins in, like, what are you already doing? And how does it align with, like I said, these roles that are social emotionally focused?
Yeah. So taking it a step further with like modeling, I like to see things to understand things. If you walked into a building or specific classroom with strong tier 1 supports, what would that look like? Like, what would you notice immediately, or what would you be like, oh my God, yes, that is like a strong tier 1 system that is in place? So thinking about a building, so on the macro level, but then on the micro level, individual classrooms, like what are some behaviors or systems that you would see?
Yeah. So definitely the systems itself or the organization, right? So like if I'm going into a classroom, because I've been in, two types of classrooms where you have one teacher who's like, all right, so table 3, get up and, get to your things and this, that, and the third. But also in like more of a social emotional focus, like I've seen some really great examples of students giving each other compliments. Like after we've done the lesson, now they're like, I really like how Sarah was able to do her addition and da 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 da. Like I was like, that's so cool. Like it's not like they're waiting for either a school counselor to come in and be the social emotional enforcer. There's ways that they're weaving it into just like their daily practices, even like the wish you wells in the morning for my little kids, or like recognizing each other for small little things. But also I love when teachers are able to talk about before they start, like say a group project or a group assignment, and they're just like, okay, how do we work well together? What does good communication sound like? So really modeling and having them think through some of those social emotional components, but also just like classroom wise or like space wise, thinking about, do you have spaces and opportunities for students who may not be on the right thing that they're supposed to be doing, right? Or they might be struggling. Do you have spaces for them to regulate, and giving them the opportunity to say like, hey, I need some help, or hey, that made me mad, that made me frustrated. I think when they don't have those opportunities, you start to see the kids who are, kicking the desk, or they're storming out, or so taking that time and that flexibility within the instruction to be able to speak with kids, see what they need to help them out. Those are usually those classrooms or those environments where you're like, the tier 1 is very strong, because again, it's that recognition of like, hey, I know that kids are still learning and we still have skills to work on, and I'm going to help you do that, whether it's through the modeling, whether it's through our systems that we do here, our recognitions. It's apparent. And like I said, you can see it in a school as well too, because it just kind of goes throughout. If most of the classrooms are kind of on the same page with having that social emotional like apparent, the environments are like, it's crazy how you'll see the difference. You know, it's crazy the differences you'll see in different schools, and yeah.
I do think you said the word modeling, and I'm huge on that with behavior. I think modeling is such an underrated strategy to utilize when teaching skills when it comes to SEL and behavior, just modeling. Like how intentionally showing things, or when you make mistakes, or when you're frustrated. I find myself a lot more too with my son of like, Christopher, mommy is getting overwhelmed. I am getting very frustrated. I need to take a breath. I have to walk away. That doesn't mean like I'm upset with you, and I don't like, I just need a moment before I get upset. So just modeling what it looks like I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to lose my ish. I do lose my ish, right? And he tells me, he's like, I don't like it when you yell at me like that. You're right. Like, and I apologize. I don't like yelling at you. And I make mistakes too, especially when I'm frustrated. I've had it up to here. I'm overwhelmed to my sensory overload, right? My lid flips every once in a while as well. But modeling, I just don't think we do enough of. I know one thing that I liked, I know it's very basic, but I love it, are the zones of regulation, because I noticed a lot of my kiddos, especially I work with a lot of autistic individuals. Sometimes it's hard to label the exact emotion, right? Or find the word. So just the colors of like, yep, I feel green, in the yellow, but then modeling that back, like, hey, classroom, like I would tell them sometimes when I walk them, I'm feeling a little yellow. Because like it's you know, and that always doesn't always mean negative, but just like I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. What can I do to get myself back to green, and being able to model that in the moment? But I do think we forget again that there's such a laundry list of things that teachers, I think, have to do throughout the day. But modeling is really underutilized.
It is
in the classroom.
We use zones of regulation at home. It's a quick favorite. What zone you in? Favorite at home.
Yeah, and you know what? But we stopped doing those things, I feel like, in middle school and high school, where they feel like, oh, this is like babyish. But I'm like, literally one of the first lessons I did for this summer course with the high schoolers, where we were talking about identifying like complex feelings. And I was like, you know, you've had a situation where you felt a way, but you couldn't describe like what that feeling was. And I was like showing them the feelings wheel, because I was like, we have to start to broaden our vocabulary when it comes to like our emotions, so that we are able to identify like, this is how I felt and this is how my body felt when this happened, so that if it occurs again, like you kind of know how to respond to it in a healthy way. But like I said, that kind of gets passed up with the older kids, because I feel like they're just like, well, they should know. They should know better. We got other things to do right now.
So we call that centered. And so we moved from zones of regulation. It was like, are you centered? Like, and then there's I have to find the research. So it's not me to make this up. I have to figure out, remember what I was in when I did this. I think I was working in the recovery high school when I did this. But there were 4 quadrants, very similar to the zones of regulation, but we wanted to keep you centered. So were you mad, tired? So it's almost like halt. It was similar to that, but not exactly. But I wanted to get you back to the middle, because sometimes you're wavering in between. Sometimes I'm angry. I'm being a jokester, kind of like I'm masking, right? So it's other language that was more relevant to middle and high, to get them to say, I am not where I need to be. How do I get here, right? And so similar research to zones of regulations, but we called it centered.
Love that.
Another question I have for you, because I know we talked about, I spent a lot of my time working in ABA with autistic individuals, and we kind of briefly talked this offline before we started, of just, I feel like once kiddos move up in the triangle, or then have tier 2 supports or tier 3 supports, or eventually have, special education might have an IEP or any, 504, or just are in the special education sector, that then I feel like they're like, yep, tier 1 no longer applies. They have this kiddo has an IEP, so tier 1 no longer applies. And I'm like baffled, because I'm like, whoa, like kiddos, I think there's a misconception that once kiddos move up a tier, it's just like, okay, they've
dropped
this
off.
is away, versus like, no, like they should still receive tier 1 supports and tier 2 supports and tier 3 supports, and now on top of that an IEP or a 504 if they have it, right? So like they're still getting all of those supports. It's not a one or the other. So how do teachers and educators or leaders, and then maybe Sherann too, you can talk about how you have done it, like how can those tier 1 supports create a more inclusive environment for students with disabilities, so that like it is still built in, so it's not that's the intervention specialist job, not my job.
Yeah. And I think it's, just seeing them all as a student. I think when a student starts to receive any type of like tier 2 or tier 3 supports, like people say like, oh, well, the SPED teacher has it, like this is the SPED student. Like one of the very first things that I did when I had joined my first elementary school, we had a SPED classroom. Right. And I think it went from K through 12, but we had a SPED classroom. They had their own teachers. They had, their own curriculum and things. But I remember saying like, I want to go in, I want to make sure that I'm doing lessons with them too. Like they are still students. They still need social emotional development. I want to be able to go in and provide those supports as well too. But I'm glad that you talked about like, that drop off and like, oh, the student is tier 3, like forget all the tier 1, because honestly, I made that mistake too for years. It wasn't until like doing some more reading and things of that nature where it was like, oh, if a student is tier 3, they are supposed to provide, still have the tier access to tier 1 and then access to tier 2 supports as well. And I was like, that is good to know, because I did not, for whatever reason, it did not become a thing of understanding for me until a little bit later. But I think, like I said, that general, like they're a student. So again, if we're doing or we're providing the support for students, it should be available and accessible to all students. And I'm even thinking about like, say things like assemblies, right? We like to have like the whole school there. Sometimes it can get loud and this, that, and the third. But then often I think about like some of our students, because I remember I was subbing and I saw, one of the students with like the noise canceling headphones. But then I saw some like other kids, it was like maybe just 2. But they were like overstimulated, I could tell. Like they had already done like a lot of singing and dancing and this, that, and the third. And like, the kid is just like crying and yelling. And I'm just like, I think this baby is unwell. Like, and thinking about inclusivity, like not everybody got to be in the room. We can put this on Zoom and have a little classroom on the side, or, like there's other ways that we can still include students who are overly like stimulated, but still have them be a part of, our celebration and our routines and rituals. But I think that we have to know what our students' needs are. And that takes knowing all of your students, not just saying, oh, this is a SPED department, SPED got it. Like we have to know every single one of our students and what unique needs they have, which is time consuming, but it does help being preventative.
Yeah. Right. Or to even fight back on that a little bit, because sometimes what I would notice, sometimes it's not the kiddos in the autism classroom or the special education students that are struggling in the assemblies. So knowing that too, when I think of inclusivity as well, it's not just maybe the students that have disabilities, it's all the students, because as as an adult coming into some of these assemblies, sometimes I'm like, I'm overwhelmed. There's too much
I'm gonna be in a
going on.
corner somewhere.
Correct. What do I need to do to like take a couple deep breaths and, you know, like center myself because I'm getting overwhelmed, but I have those skills, right? I've been taught those skills where I know how to manage all of those things at once and what works for me. So it's so important to then also be able to give our students a fighting chance as well, like what works for you, and not just assume. I think it's either like, oh, this is a kiddo with a disability, let's just give them some headphones, or they don't need to come to the assembly at all because they're overwhelmed. Like, but then we're not teaching skills either, because there are going to be situations just in real world when we're out and about where every student might encounter that kind of experience, that kind of situation, that kind of stressor. So how are we teaching all of our students to manage those stressors and how to deal with those appropriately? We are missing out sometimes on a lot of opportunities to teach those skills.
That is true. And I do feel like sometimes schools, specifically like the way that we're structured and how we have so many kids, like what other situation would you have like 400, 500 people in one place together? And so it just reminds me of like parent conversations where they'd be like, they don't do this at home. And I'm just like, well, they're not surrounded by 400 people at home. So I would expect them to like, you know, respond to certain things differently in a school setting, because that is I can't say unique because it happens every day, but I'm like, where else are you getting that experience unless it's like a festival or some type of concert that you're going to? So I definitely hear what you're saying. Yeah.
And then Sherann, for you as the go ahead, girl. I was gonna say, as a school leader, because you know I'm data as a behavior specialist. I love data, and then Monique, you too, as a counselor in your role. But beyond like office referrals, right? Or what are some indicators in the data that tells you that like tier 1 is effective? Like I want to talk about the data that tells you that it's effective, and then maybe at the end, like what data tells you that it's ineffective, because sometimes I think we look at, or my question is, I think sometimes we look at a lot of that, we know it's not effective because of this data, right? Because we have so many referrals or so many this, but how do we know it is working? Like what data should be utilized or is utilized to show you that tier 1 interventions are working?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's the data that I talk a lot about in my work, because it lives in the gap, right? We have academic and achievement data, and then we have SEL data. And it's like, what's that bridge in the middle that helps us move the work and support students and move forward? And so a lot of it is qualitative. And I know that that's difficult sometimes when folks just want to see numbers. And there's some research, it's called street data, which is probably 10 plus years old at this point, but it came out, and a lot of school counseling teams and student support teams picked that up because it was helping us tell our story of the way that we're doing this work and transforming school counseling cultures. So that street data research, or that model, is really helpful. And so it's qualitative. You're looking for common use of language. I'm going to answer you in look fors. So common use of language across the schools, and then common practices. So when I say common practices, I'm thinking about the sorry, just lost my train of thought. I don't know how I just did. Oh, okay. So when I say common practices, this classroom teacher isn't doing it differently from this classroom teacher. Personality, maybe. But if a pass is required to go do X, Y, Z, we're not deviating. Kids should know what to expect as they move throughout the school building at any age. So that's the one thing that I know that was difficult for me as a school leader, because folks would like, yeah, just go. I'm like, ho, because now they're in the hallway and we're like, where's your pass? The kid's like, nah, they just told me to go, right? And so now you're frustrating the kid because they were like, you adults don't even have it together. You know what I mean? So it's like, so it's an adult thing. A lot of this is adult, right? So I would go back to the teachers and be like, y'all, we just agreed on this. Please. please, because now I'm in the hallway thinking this kid is not doing what they need to do. So my immediate reaction is, hey, where are you supposed to be? I don't greet them with any bad energy. They'd be like, I'm going to the bathroom. It's like, okay, pass. They're like, nah, the teacher just told me to go. All right. You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of it is adult behavior.
Yeah, it is.
And then the second is communication with families. And so that's the third thing, sorry. So the adult behaviors, systems and structures that everybody is following, clear common conversation and understanding. The students understand or having the same conversations as well as the staff. I loved it when a kid would be like, yo, Chris, chill. Like, this is not the behavior. Do you know what I mean? Like, or Chris, go take a walk. You know, you can take a walk if you're like frustrated or need to be on your phone or whatever. So when the kids check other kids and it's less, and it wasn't aggressive and they weren't trying to call them out, they were like, yo, bro, just get off your phone or just go take a walk, go to the bathroom and do that. You know what I mean? Like, so you would see that the kids understood what the expectation was. And then the parents, they weren't calling us hostile and mad and be like, my kid, what do you need? How can I help? Right? And then it turned into, oh, how can I help you? How can I make sure my kid's ready? How can I make sure we get into this finish line? So for us, I think it was those things that we would see, and that would translate into, we knew that our tier 1 was working, but the data was definitely qualitative. And I'm going to drop the name of the resource that I just mentioned, which is Street Data, into the chat. Because I like to always drop information for folks, and thank you for
and we've been dropping some resources in the chat this whole time. So please make sure, if you are part of the conversation or you are watching this after the fact, that you also check the resources.
I love that you brought up street data, Sherann, because I'm like, it's crazy that the data that is kind of needed to measure the social emotional is not as prevalent. You know, like, we have all of these screeners, we're using like our state assessments and things like that. But I'm like, yeah, you do have to be intentional about gathering some of that qualitative data, and whether that's like the surveys that you send home to parents or that you're making the students do. But then also, like, one of the things we like to do at my school was like focus groups with the students, because you know, you get the students in a room, they'll tell you the truth, they're not holding back. And so you know, they would even tell us about certain blind spots that we weren't even aware of, because you know, you're thinking about the day-to-day, your routine, and this, that, and the third, and then they bring up like, yeah, we don't get any opportunities to do X, Y, and Z. It was like, oh, you want to do okay, well, let's put that on the list, you know, because we didn't know about it. But even thinking on that quantitative side, like, I do feel like a lot of people will try to use like the SEL screener. So like your Sabers and, like I said, whatever screener you might be using through like Panorama, which is really popular. But like seeing that pre and that post, like that growth in the students. But my thing is, you know, again, if you're not being intentional about the social emotional skill that you're trying to see develop, it's almost kind of like you're like not fishing in a barrel, but like you're just shooting in the dark. Like, okay, well, we want social emotional to increase, but it's like, okay, yeah, but like, how can we be a little bit more intentional about that? Yeah, like, we can just throw it out there, but it's almost like, you know, because they'll say, we're going to increase our social emotional, right? And then what happens is that either teachers get a slideshow or they get some type of social emotional video, and they just got it playing in the background, and it's not being intentionally taught. So I'm like, if we're talking about really trying to move the needle with like social emotional skills, like, we really have to be intentional about what is it that we're trying to measure, what specific skill are we working on, and like I said, what is our checkpoint for when we're going to measure that growth. But like I said, the screeners can be used for that. But honestly, I really feel like a lot of people just, they use it, like they'll do it as their beginning, their end. They might have the students tiered, but they don't even know what to do with the tiering of the students.
And Monique, I think it goes back to what you said at the beginning. People don't know or can't implement what they don't know how to implement. So that's one of the things that I noticed with behavior. I'd be like, why? Like, this is not rocket science, right? That's kind of how I would feel when I first started working at schools. Like, come on, y'all. Like, let's just basic common sense, right? Like, let's just use it. But then I really started just with talking to people and now actually being in the school environment full time instead of just like consulting of like, you don't know, right? Because it's not taught in schools, or you might be taught like this general classroom management checklist of to-dos, right? But then that actual implementation out in the real world is like, but that's not how it worked here, right? So I think to your point too, of like part of that intentionality is, are we actually teaching all educators of all levels, from paraprofessionals to admin,
Your
like
supporting staff
basics,
too.
right? Because you can't be one person in how many buildings being the only one to teach SEL. Like, how is this embedded within the system that everyone kind of knows? Oh, here are basic tools, here are basic systems, here's how to implement it into my day-to-day without it feeling like another job or another checklist that I have to check off, but I'm not doing it intentionally day to day because I know how. So I think that's where.
But that's why I try to advocate so much for like, especially support staff getting more training within buildings, because people assume that, school counselor would have that information. Like, that's not taught in the school counseling program either. We're really focusing on counseling theory. And so when we talk about how do we actually function in a school, sometimes that's a little bit different than the training that we've gotten. I had a class over assessment, but really the assessment class was like, here's some of the psych assessments that will be done, like a BAS-3 or something like that. And here's how you interpret the results to be able to help communicate to the parent. Like, you're going to be the student advocate in a meeting to be able to like help bridge the information. But as far as like, hey, here's a social emotional screener and here's what you do with the results, that was not taught to me. So I literally had to, find webinars and go out and find the textbooks so that I knew how to do that, because I was like, it's a need. But who else is going to champion that in our building? Because again, there's so much instructional focus. And so I took it upon myself to do that. And so that's why I was like, hey, I gotta, start consulting, because I was like, I need to be able to teach other people. Still, when I go to conferences, like as recently as October, went to like my state school counseling association, and I talked about, intervention meetings and like data assessment. So many people were like, we don't do that. They were like, we collect the data, like we're doing panorama, or we're collecting this type of data, but we don't know what to do with it. And like I said, because they're not receiving regular training or they're not finding the resources to help them, it literally just falls to the wayside. So you're spending tens of thousands of dollars on this curriculum or this platform to help tier students. But like I said, it just kind of falls through because nobody knows what to do next. It's not a lot of push, because like I said, you have administrators who are focusing on so many different things that may not be at the top of their mind, or, they might even understand that that's a need. They might assume that a counselor or a social worker might know this because, oh yeah, you're logged into the platform. And, a lot of times the school, the administrator will make the school counselor like the lead of it. Like, hey, you're going to administer this assessment. And like I said, people don't like to admit it. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm administering the assessment as they tell me, but then I don't know what to do next.
I don't know what to do with it. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point.
A lot.
That is a great point. What is one free strategy, or just, strategy that's out there to wrap it up a little bit too, that you think every school or classroom should be using?
Ooh. And I don't want to be biased because I'm a school counselor, but I will say,
girl, this is all about school counselors.
One of the easiest things that I think that all schools can do, and sometimes we overlook, is the positive student recognition. And like I said, you don't even need money to do that. That can be verbal recognition, but not waiting till the end of the school year, not waiting until grade cards come out, because we like to do our assembly and most improved and this, that, and third, but like finding some way that consistently, like at least once a month, being able to provide some recognition to students, and that's school-wide. But like I said, that could also be something that you align through every single classroom as well. So I think that that's one of the easy, let's do this and let's be consistent with this.
Mhm.
And I think for adults too, don't forget to recognize them adults, because
Yeah.
we want some shine too, whether we like to admit it or not. We want
Mhm.
some of that too.
Yeah.
So for those of you listening out there, we decided we're going to start something new today, kind of called the rapid fire round as we wrap up. So what we're going to do, we're going to complete the sentence with these things with 1 or 2 words, and then we'll get like a final wrap up question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. So complete the sentence. Tier 1 is
Essential.
every school should stop.
Ooh, judging. Judging students.
Okay, T. Every teacher deserves.
More pay.
Amen. A raise. Yeah. School climate starts with.
Students.
One routine every classroom should have is.
Look, I would want to say routine. What routine every classroom should have? Learning each other's names.
Important. Yeah. The biggest missed opportunity in schools is.
Having tier 1.
That part all the way. Perfect. So as we wrap up today, if a principal or a principal is listening out there, gave you 1 day to improve their tier 1 supports across their building with no additional budget, so with no extra money, no extra staff, what would you do first?
One of the easiest things that I like to do is to look and see, what are they already doing? You know, we don't have to build anything necessarily from scratch. A lot of times schools are already doing things, or they're attempting to put something into place, but it may not be the consistency, or maybe they don't have all of the materials. Maybe they don't have the staff that's committed, but what are you already doing? And kind of assessing from there to see where can we make some small shifts so that you can get a small win. I think when I talk to principals a lot, they think about like that end goal. Well, we want our teachers to be able to talk to students without, dysregulating them. We want them to be able to do check-ins and this, that, and the third. And I said, and I get that, but here's where we are and here's where you want to go. So we have to think incrementally, what is actually realistic for you to get done this school year? What is the small Lego piece that we're going to start with for this year and then build upon as we start to see more growth and development? But in 1 day, definitely looking at what is already happening and where can we, find those small wins there.
Yeah, love it. I love that. Anything else? Thank you, Big Nashville. Big Nashville's been on the call the whole time.
Hey,
loving the rapid fire. So tell us what you got going on next. What should people look out for? Tell us about any upcoming events for the school counselor coach. Anything you want to promote?
Yeah, so I'm really excited. I'm going to be doing something for the first time. Now, I will say I'm starting off with my people here locally in Greater Kansas City area, but I am hosting a workshop called the Social Emotional Takeover. And during this intensive, because it's going to be a couple hours, I ain't going to lie to you, but it is 1 day. But it's July 16th, and what you're going to do is you'll come to the library, and what I'm going to help you do is to build your tier 1 practice implementation plan. Because a lot of times, like I said, we have the idea of the end goal. Hey, we want all teachers to have like a calm down corner, or we want to have a sensory room. We want to start doing assemblies. But then a lot of people don't understand what all is needed to even get it off the ground. So I'm going to help them build that implementation plan, but have it so that they're ready to pitch this proposal to their admin. They should already have answered the things that they need, the time that they need, the resources, and all of that. I'll help walk you through that so you're ready to go. And during this workshop, they have the opportunity to apply later for a $250 mini grant, because I want to really help support and make sure that they get their pitch or their proposal off the ground. So yeah, that's coming up. But like I said, if you're not in the Kansas City area and that sounds interesting, still join my email list. You can go to my Instagram and it's in the bio, or my Facebook page. And like I said, I'll have something special coming up for my people in different states, but I'm starting here in greater Kansas City area. So that's what I have coming up.
Kansas City workshop registration. We're getting ready to drop that link in the chat. So if you're in Kansas City or surrounding areas, please join Monique.
And I heard you say it was low cost, no cost at your public library?
It's no cost, because like I said, it's going to be up to 50 educators. So right now I've already got some people who've chosen some slots. So I'm like, get in
so
here.
up to 50, up to 50 seats.
Mm-hmm.
And you get an so no cost, your public library, which means air conditioning and Wi-Fi. And you're going to offer an opportunity for a mini grant to carry this into the school year.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, school counselor coach. I know that's
so I'm
right.
like, don't think that it's going to happen again. So
this is it. This is the beta test. Get in while you can get in.
Exactly. Yeah. The price will go up.
Tomorrow's price ain't tomorrow. Tomorrow's price ain't today's price, y'all. She said it here first.
Oh man, I'm here for that. Coach Scho, we're gonna pass the mic to you. What's going on in July?
July, I am going to kick it. Okay, we are gonna do vacations. All right. So we got vacations planned. I'm gonna relax. So it's hard because you're like, okay, I still got to work on my business. Do I bring my laptop? Do I not bring my laptop? So still kind of debating with that. Working on some contracts. So excited, close 2 contracts for school for some summer professional development. But one of the biggest things is August 6th. I will be in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm in Ohio for the OCCS convention, so their annual convention. That is I always get it wrong with all the other Ohio stuff. The Ohio Council of Community Schools, their annual convention is August 6th. So I am a presenter. I was chosen to present at their conference. So I am presenting there, and then be on the lookout for a meet and greet event that Agnes, the people's principal, Agnes, and I are going to try to have that night beforehand. So be on the lookout for that.
I love it.
Yes, girl, big Nashville. It is hard to just I got to rest and vacation and just have a good time and not be on my computer all the time, or sneak in time to do things. Oh, another big thing I got going on, I am starting to record some of my content and my courses, really more tailored to RBTs, so registered behavior technicians, to get their PDUs. So they have some professional development units that they have to start getting now every 2 years. So content tailored towards the RBTs and educators of all teachers, paraprofessionals, admins, honestly, about just a lot of things that I talk about: behavior, antecedent strategies, behavior basics. So I want to start a platform where I'm going to start recording content that you can then purchase. It's not going to be $30 for an hour. I'm going to try to make it very cost effective. But a way for people to learn and to have that content available. So I'm very excited about
you
that.
said something very specific that I want to elevate. They get their PDUs, they're called?
Yes, RBTs have PDUs. So those are for BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst. We have CEUs, continuing education credits. when we renew our licensure every 2 years, we have to get that. That was never a requirement for RBTs, but just recently they changed the requirement that now when it's time for you to recertify every now 2 years as well, the RBTs will also have to, which I think is important. There needs to be more specific learning opportunities and training, like we talked about earlier in this conversation, for the RBTs, that now they also will have an X amount. I forget off the top of my head what the amount is, but also a number of hours that they have to get every 2 years for their recertification. Jamila, tell her to holler at me, the IEP coach. Tell her if she has any questions or, needs anyone. Tell her to hit me up.
Uh-oh. Where's Sherann go?
I am not sure where Sherann just
She
went.
must have pressed the wrong button.
I know. We'll wait for her to come back because I am interested to hear
what she's got
going on. Oh, there she is. I'll tell him. Yes, please tell him. My bad. Tell him. This is her, but yes, tell him, please.
I love it. Sorry about that, guys. My thing is doing what it wants today.
We're like, I'm glad it didn't kick us off. I was a little nervous still.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. So now we know that does not happen. Okay, now we fix the wheel. This is okay. Hi. So not only parenting during a live, dealing with tech issues. So that's also interesting in the background. Just trying to figure out what's going on. So we're gonna get a tech expert in the background in our studio. Moving forward, we're gonna find an intern or something. So we are. So what am I doing? Great question.
What you got going on?
Yeah.
So lots of stuff going on. So I am launching an email course, Data to Decisions. And so I really want to support my instructional leadership teams in figuring out what that gap is between student support data and academic achievement data. So I'll be launching an email course mid-July. So stay tuned for that. And then I have my virtual hidden leadership workshop. There's 25 seats for that. We have quite a few booked, which I'm excited about. July 23rd, I'll drop the link for that, and that's virtual. You can hop in from anywhere. And July 31st to August 1st, I'm presenting at the Spark EDU conference in Austin, Texas.
Oh.
It's hot up here.
I was about to say, it's about to be hot and humid.
Hot and humid. So, down in Austin, Texas. So I'm excited for that. And I'm going to drop where you can find Counselor Concierge. Follow us and drop what's going on for us for the rest of July. And a vacation, though. Let me say that I was jealous. Scho was sitting there talking about, I'm shutting this laptop, slam it shut. We're taking a quick vacation. Not next week, but the one after. Go see some friends and family, and then we do we go to Martha's Vineyard, which I love every year. It's an annual family vacation, grandparents and all that. We do. And we're here in Massachusetts, so it's quick for us. It's super easy. And so we do that in August, and so we have two vacations, and so I will hope that I'll be able to also slam laptop shut and enjoy that with the kids and family.
That's great. You got anything fun the rest July, August, Monique?
Ooh, we gonna see about the second half of July, because first half of July I'm gonna be conferences and workshop and this, that, and the third. So second half of July, but for sure in September we're planning to go to Orlando Studios, and it'll also be Universal Studios, and that's my first time going too. So I said, I'm going to plan some stuff for the kids, but I'm planning some stuff for myself too. So I'm excited.
It's hard with the studios because my in-laws really want to go to Disneyland. Me and my husband, not so much. Like, I honestly could care less. Maybe too, because my son's not really into, he'd like some Disney shows, but it's But I didn't go to Disneyland until I was an adult, and then, in the 20s with my family, with all of us. I
ain't been either, so that's why I said that's a whole
we went to
separate
Epcot. Trip. Correct. So it's just we had more fun. I think my mom, when we were younger, she had enough of the through my dad's job, we always got tickets to Six Flags before it closed down here in Cleveland, and SeaWorld before that closed down, and all the amusement park kind of things. So she was like, yeah, I'm over going to like, you want me to take my grandson somewhere? Like, we will go fly abroad and go visit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna go on a trip. I'm not going to no amusement park and that's the same with me. Like, I don't want to stand in line, even with like fast passes. They're like, you still gotta stand in line.
That's why I'm planning for September. I had to plan my trip through ChatGPT. I was like, when is the best time to go? Because I don't like crowds, period. So I said, when is it cheaper? When are the lines shorter? They said September. I said, okay, I will be there.
Yeah, I hear like a Disney cruise. One of my husband's friends swears by a Disney cruise because like kids and it's fun and you stop on the island. So like Liv and swears by like an annual Disney cruise. So like maybe one day.
No, listen, they never drop the price because they don't have to, because people are going to book it anyway. So no, that they never sale on Disney cruises. But save your coins because it's worth it. We did it. And I didn't have kids or anything when we went, but the whole family was going. I'm going too. There's an adult side of the boat. There's adults only, and so you can go and they get them little.
Said, "Come kick with Mickey after hours." Please. Thank you.
It's no joke, and you get them little bands, and as long as the babies is potty trained, you throw them in that Mickey Adventure Oceaneer Club. Let me tell you right now, you don't got to see your kids if you don't want to, and they don't want to see you neither. Them kids go in that little Mickey club. So they have a nursery. So if you do actually have a baby, you can pay a little bit extra and they can take care of the baby in the nursery. So every age can go do something on this cruise. Let me tell you, I'm saving my coins. I have a Disney cruise savings account because again, they don't ever drop that price. But one of these days we going again soon. And my niece is now 15. She was only 6 months on that cruise. So that's how long it's been. She was only 6 months old. My favorite picture was with her and Princess Tiana. We have been talking about this Disney cruise. I'm so excited for you. Listen, hold on.
Man. Do it. Okay, Jamila, Bahama, Turks and Caicos, and the DR. She said, I'm hitting up the whole Caribbean. Okay, the whole Caribbean. Listen, in that clear water.
Yes,
that's the only place I want to be, is on somebody's beach, somebody's island. Yes.
With a all-inclusive wristband on adventures, like
tap,
straight kicking it.
It's in the room.
I do keep telling my husband, because I keep hearing like we want to go to Japan. That's one of our places to go to. I'll go hit up Disney in Japan because I hear it is kind of cheap to go over there and it's clean. Okay, we can do we'll go to Japan for 2 weeks and then like hit up Disneyland for a day or something like that. But
that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah. The cocktail always necessary. I don't care when they be like, ain't you my mom? Ain't you? Listen, don't check me over here, okay? Let me be between the hours of 11 and 1, okay? Let me do me if I got a little time.
Right.
All right. Let me go to Cooper's Hawk and have me an appetizer with a glass of wine before I gotta be a mom again in 2 hours. All right, leave me be.
I love
checking
it.
for me.
You all are too much fun. Monique, school counseling coach. Thank you.
Thank y'all for having me. And like I said, I'm always watching. So I'm looking forward to your next one. So
thank you for having you.
Yes, we loved having you. Thank you for coming on and the great conversation. You see, we are more than an hour in. We definitely could have kept going.
We love it. We love it. So when's our next session, Scho? 2 weeks?
Yes. Hold on, y'all. Because it's July, and I said I was kicking it. Yep, on in 2 weeks, July 16th. We got another guest coming, Miss CEO and founder of School Counselor on Wheels. So we got another school counselor popping up. Check our socials to know exactly who we're talking about. If you don't know School Counselor on Wheels, you will find out in the next coming weeks for sure.
That's so exciting. All right, so kicking it in July with the July 16th special pop-up. We will be here So glad to be here with the school counselor coach, Monique Young. Thank you so much. Creative Minds, please follow Monique. Drop all your stuff in the chat if we haven't done so already. Where we can find you. And any parting words today, Monique? We're gonna give you the last word.
Oh my gosh, I get the last words.
Ah.
I think the parting words, I don't know. It's July. So I think what you guys are kind of saying, what we were alluding to, is just really enjoy the summer. Even if that means enjoyment for you means that planning, getting organized, cleaning your house, like enjoyment looks different for different people. So enjoy the rest of the summer.
Mm-hmm. Enjoy the rest of the summer. Listen, because it's short.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, cheers, ladies. Grab your cups. Grab your cups. Thank you so much for joining us. Mine's empty. I'm going to get some more coffee, but here we go. Cheers, cheers, cheers. Thank you so much for joining us today. And let me, yes. And then
Appreciate y'all.
16th, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining us. Ooh.